I suppose for any visitor to the Lake District, the two chief attractions are the lakes, of course, and the mountains. But because of the nature of the terrain, if you want to explore the mountains and get the best view of the Lake District from them, you've got to be prepared to leave the roads and start climbing very steeply. For example, I'm standing at the eastern side of the Dunmail Raise, a great trench that cuts through the mountains, heading north from Grasmere along the shores of Thirlmere to Keswick. And from the eastern side of the Dunmail Raise, there are several paths that go up to the top of the mighty mountain of Helvellyn. I'm on one of them now. And this is the way you have to go if you want to get to the top and see what can be seen from there. Not that crag up there is the summit. That's only about halfway up, so there's a long way to go yet. The Lake District is in northwest England. We'll examine the features along a transect line from Helvellyn in the east to the head of the Langdale Valley, 11 kilometres away to the southwest, and we'll end at Grasmere. Viewed from the air, the western approach from Dunmail Raise to the summit of Helvellyn can be seen as a smooth surface, the line of which is marked by that footpath running parallel with the snow line. The eastern side, the side we're now facing, is marked by a precipitous rocky drop which falls to that lake, Red Tarn, deep in a sheltered hollow. The rock faces enclose this lake on three sides. Red Tarn is a corrie or cirque lake formed in a hollow gouged out by a glacier which poured from here during the Ice Age. That another glacier formed nearby is indicated by the shape of this ridge south of the lake. This extends to Striding Edge, one of the most famous knife-edge ridges in Britain. These ridges are called arêtes by geographers. The whole ridge, including Bleeberwick Crag here in the foreground, was formed in the same way as Llywedd and Cribgoch, two arêtes on the eastern summit of Snowdon. The footpath along Striding Edge is a popular route to the summit. On windy days, it's a most challenging ridge walk. Craggy rock faces, plateau summits, mountain and valley lakes, deep glaciated valleys, these are the distinctive relief features of the Cumbrian Lake District, and they're important factors determining the local agricultural and tourist economies. Our study area lies in the heart of Lakeland. Some people refer to it as the Central Fells. The rocks underlying the surface are the Borrowdale Volcanics, the centre of the three belts of rock shown on this simplified geology map. Radiating from this central area are great valleys, many of them containing extensive finger lakes which give the Lake District its name. Not all of these lakes are of natural origin. Indeed, the lake closest to the summit of Helvellyn in our study area is in fact a reservoir. This is Thirlmere, a reservoir at the northern end of Dunmail Raise. It came into operation in 1894 to supply water to Manchester, and now supplies other parts of northwest England as well. The water in this reservoir is regarded as very pure, and considerable efforts have been made to ensure that the water catchment area and the water in the reservoir are kept unpolluted. The physical features of this part of the valley have been preserved, but recreation for visitors has been restricted. Associated with the reservoir are the surrounding forest plantations. The roots of the trees bind the loose surface soils and prevent soil erosion. Not only does this prevent the silting up of the reservoir, but also the retained soil acts as a sponge, collecting the heavy rainfall and letting it run off gently into the reservoir. Afforestation is a controversial problem in many British national parks, and this is certainly true of the Lake District, though the Thirlmere plantation has been on the scene for so long, virtually throughout this century, that it is now an accepted part of the scene. A threat of more recent origin to the Lake District rural environment is the flow of traffic, which annually gets heavier. In a mountainous area, obviously, there can be few road routes. As more and more traffic pours into and through the Lake District, making use of such splendid passes as this, the Dunmail Raise, then the road surfaces have to be improved, the roads widened, and parking spaces provided. To escape from the noise and the fumes, to enjoy the peace and quiet and fresh air of the countryside, you must move to the upper, more secluded valleys. Southwest of Helvellyn and above the Langdale Valley is the valley of the Little Easdale, protected from noisy traffic, but not from numerous visitors. For most of these visitors, the objective is Easdale Tarn, and they walk there from Grasmere, 3 kilometres away. Like Red Tarn, the tarn we saw in the hollow carved out of the eastern side of Helvellyn, Easdale Tarn is a cirque lake, that is, a lake formed in a distinctively shaped glacial hollow. These hollows are called cwms in Wales and corries elsewhere. Easdale Tarn has the same characteristic features as other cirque lakes. The high back wall, almost vertical, drops to an accumulation of scree material before we see the lake itself filling the floor of the hollow. Easdale Tarn, that's T-A-R-N, a North Country word for lake, is a very fine example of an ice-formed lake. It's up in the mountains to the west of Grasmere, and in the days before the ice ages, there used to be a stream valley running over the edge of that precipice there, running down through here and going out that way. But during the ice ages, the entire tops of these mountains were covered with a great thickness of ice, and a glacier came down this valley, smoothed it out to a bit of a U shape there, gouged out the softer rock here, rose up, and then went on down the valley. Now a stream flows out of the lake. It's called Sourmilk Gill, and it pours over the lip of the hollow as a waterfall. Even in a dry spell, such as when this was filmed, the waterfall is an attractive feature. Lakeland valleys like this contain relatively small features which are evidence of ice movement. Outcropping in the valley floors are rocky exposures which have a distinctive shape. On the one side they've been smoothed by the moving ice, on the other they have a rugged, craggy outline. Some of these features are called roches moutonnées, sheep rocks, since they sometimes look like sheep in a meadow. Above Easdale Tarn, to the west of it, is the plateau surface of Blee Rig. It stands some 540 metres above sea level, and it is a hummocky surface with thick layers of peat, extensive areas of poor drainage, and some rocky outcrops. Scattered about this plateau, there are small lakes, like this one, Stickle Tarn, another cirque lake. The waterfall, which flows out of Stickle Tarn in the foreground there, falls over a rocky slope to the Langdale Valley below. At the foot of this slope is a hotel, which is a popular rendezvous point for climbers and fell walkers. Here we see a school party, having travelled to this point by minibus, now setting off, well equipped for the wind and rain, to clamber up to Stickle Tarn and the plateau beyond. The rim over which the stream pours gives the impression of a hanging corrie on the edge of the valley. Travelling westwards from Harrison Stickle, which overlooks Stickle Tarn, we see the craggy summits of the Langdale Pikes. The most distinctive is Pike of Stickle on the left there. These vertical rock faces are a feature of this part of the Langdale Valley. They're caused by the exposure of a volcanic rock type, volcanic tuffs, which are harder than the surrounding rocks. The land falls steeply to the valley below. This is Mickledon, one of the two valleys which form the Langdale Valley. On this map, we can see the Langdale Valley extending westwards from Elterwater as far as the Band. The Band, I'm standing on it now, is a huge spur of rock which sticks eastward into the Langdale Valley, and it divides it into two smaller valleys. The Oxendale Valley, which goes southwestwards up into the mountains behind me, and the one on the northern side is the upper Langdale Valley, which hereabouts is called Mickledon. And this one, as you can see, also runs up into the mountains to the Black Crags, just being touched by sunlight at the moment, and to the Rosset Crags right behind me. Now, the interesting thing about the Langdale Valley, when looked at from this vantage point, is that on the north side, you've got very steep slopes, lots of hanging valleys. That's to say, streams that come down, running down in a little torrent, and then drop suddenly over little precipices, and they leave their patterns, their delta-shaped patterns of scree, that's all the debris, whereas on the south side, the slopes are much shallower, much flatter, still pretty steep, but by Lake District standards, much shallower than those on the north. And then when you look between the sides of the valley, down Langdale itself, you can see that all this flat greenery, which is the only part that's cultivated, could have been, and indeed was, round about the time of the Ice Ages, a long, winding lake, rather like Thirlmere is today. Indeed, flooding has long been a problem in this valley, and in recent times, the year 1966 is remembered for a particularly high level of water on this valley floor. Rich pastures with small, hedged fields surround the scattered farms on the valley floor. Cattle, mainly beef cattle, are kept here, and the pastures are also used for fattening sheep. Scattered clumps of deciduous woodland add variety to the scene. On the lower slopes of the valley sides, the pastures begin to deteriorate. Screes and glacial deposits form the materials on which soils here have developed. This land is marginal land, and it shows signs of being overgrown by bracken and other vegetation, which makes it increasingly useless. Higher up, beyond the dry stone wall, which marks the limit of the enclosed pasture land, are the open fells where sheep graze freely. Until the 19th century, the Lake District was a relatively isolated part of Britain, inhabited by a small population of subsistence farmers. The railways, which opened up many other isolated parts of Britain, did not penetrate this central part of the Lake District. Now the farmers must contend not only with the physical environment, but increasingly with problems created by numerous visitors. This increase of visitors is brought about by the improved road links, especially the M6 link with Manchester and the Midlands, which has brought many more visitors to the lakes. Here at Ambleside is a typical example of the bottlenecks that occur in this area. West of Ambleside, at the eastern approach to the Langdale Valley, is Elterwater, with a village just to the west of the lake. Villages like Elterwater provide accommodation for visitors and homes mainly for retired persons. Deep in the national park, the village is subject to the strict planning controls of the Lake District Special Planning Board. Any new buildings must keep to the traditional building styles and building materials, hence the use of the locally quarried slates. A larger community is Grasmere, with its permanent population of about 1,000, which is boosted at the peak of summer to about 5,000. The daily total of visitors is much higher. Many of them come to Grasmere because of its literary associations, especially with William Wordsworth, who lived here and is buried at Grasmere Church. When you consider it's been estimated that on a fine day in summer, at least 600 people are walking on Helvellyn, then the number of motorists arriving in Grasmere by coach and car must number several thousands. To cater for these holidaymakers, there are hotels, cafes, a youth hostel, and several small shops. For the energetic, Grasmere is a convenient base for exploring the hills. As in many other rural tourist centres, the high spot of the season is the annual sports, when traditional lakeland activities are displayed, like fell running. But for many, the Lake District is a place to escape from the crowds. However, even the hills are becoming crowded, and erosion by hordes of walkers along popular paths has caused concern to conservationists about the future of the terrain. The Lake District is a small, compact area, and we've studied a small part of it. We've seen how many commercial and recreational activities are concentrated on the valley floors, where competition for the small amount of land can be great. As yet, this competition is not so noticeable on the summits, but one can anticipate controversy here too, between recreational and conservationist interests.